you will have to work. No matter what you do, you will have to work. You may end up working differently, but there will in fact be work to do. Recording this podcast is my version of work. It's different than sitting in an office. When I first started in entrepreneurship, I sat in an office where there was no lights and no windows for 20 hours a day. That was also work. This work is different. Please understand that it starts from this entire premise that you deserve to live a life that you absolutely love. That's my part to this whole thing. But that it starts with first really understanding and cultivating on purpose and intentionally how it is you spend your time at work. Your time at work is kind of the anchor piece to all of this and your ability to be able to make choices and design your life around the word freedom. A brand is a message. Now, when you are talking about an authentically aligned brand and a brand that's aligned with your calling, it really becomes a message that you are called and divinely assigned to say out loud. This particular episode is for those of you who are deeply feeling compelled to have a life that is, monikered by freedom, that is titled freedom, that feels like freedom, that looks like freedom, that allows you to breathe like freedom. This episode is entirely for you. I always kind of knew there was a better way to be doing this life thing than to spend all of our time working, and that we should never be doing work that is misaligned with who we truly are in this world and who we're really divinely called to be, right? Like that is my impression. My impression is that you should be doing work that is aligned with your divine calling, like that you were put here for a reason, and that reason gets executed in the way that you show up for 80% of your life, which when you do the math, that is what's happening when you go work a job, particularly a traditional one. So the idea of lifestyle design was kind of latently in my mind, although I did not have language for it, right? So now I hope that I get to introduce it to you if you have not heard the term before. So in this case, the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, is one that really gives language to this idea that if you can get your work down to 4 hours per week, you are then giving yourself time to create a life of freedom. So this particular episode is for those of you who are deeply feeling compelled to have a life that is, monikered by freedom, that is titled freedom, that feels like freedom, that looks like freedom, that allows you to breathe like freedom. This episode is entirely for you. Para ti, for you. Okay. So the 4-Hour Workweek, it goes through this whole process of how you can go from working full time to working 4 hours per week. Now, what does that require? It requires you to ask a lot of questions and honestly, just have like a lot of grace. So the underpinning here is that you've got to be in a corporate culture where this is a possibility, at which most companies do not have this as a possibility. So for most companies, getting employees down to working 4 hours a week is not really like their ideal. We talked before about metrics and KPIs and getting from A to Z as fast and as cheaply as possible. And that's kind of the primary concern of companies. But there are some that do in fact allow you to do some of these things. And there are some that will be willing, but nobody's asked yet. So be the first, you know what I mean? So here's kind of the process. If I could just break it down super, super cleanly, super easily, please, go read the book for yourself. If this is the kind of conversation that really feels important to you, to have a life of freedom, starting with, making the most time in your life is work. And I actually think that that's why the author kind of starts here. It's not that you can't have freedom in other ways in your life. You certainly could. You could stop watching TV. You could, cut down on the time that you're spending doing other tasks, including making food, and you could hire a nanny for your kids and have more time that way. There's a lot of other ways that you could create more time in your life. But I think the reason why he starts with work is because it is the thing that we all have in common as a human need. We must work because we have bills to pay, and that is true. And I think that it is the place where, because you are spending so much time, it's got the most wiggle room, right? So imagine you take your 40-hour work week down to a 20-hour work week. It's more than 4 hours a week, but that's half the amount of time, and you're getting 20 hours of your life back in that way. So I think there's this wisdom in going at it from the work lens. So essentially what he says is that your goal is to get yourself down to 4 hours per week, and to do so in a way where whatever you are working, you can do so with the maximum amount of freedom. So getting out of being required to work certain hours of the day, getting out of, schedules that fluctuate all the time, getting out of a scenario and system where somebody is determining your schedule for you, and getting into a space where you get to say, I am going to work these 4 hours for my maximum efficacy and productivity. I am my most productive from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. This is actually true of me. I'm my most productive at 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. Don't talk to me about core hours. You will all have emails scheduled to your inboxes and I will respond to them in my next 4-hour work block, right? Or whatever. So the questions that you have to be willing to go ask somebody is there any flexibility in the way that I can work here? If you are attached to a life of freedom, then this is the beginning of getting to that life. Not everybody is attached to the word freedom. When I say freedom, for some people, it's kind of like, I'm good. Regular, steady, like I good. I don't need what you're, probably describing as freedom, Shauna. And that's totally fine. But for those of you that this, resonates for, stick by. So getting to this 4 hours per week and, this might take a while for some of you to get there because you have to be two things. You have to be valuable enough and like authentic enough to be able to ask for it and earn it at the same time. And it's not that you have to go out and get a bunch of certifications so you can ask to work less, but if you are valuable enough at the company that you work for, they are more willing to hear your conversation is really just like the truth of it all. So if you are super valuable inside of your department, you can probably go to your higher up and say, hey, I'm thinking that I want to, shift the way that I work. Please don't tell them you want to cut back your work hours. It's not how you want to position it. You want to position it as shifting the way that you work. I would like to shift the way that I work so that I can increase my productivity and output and also give myself a little bit of respite. So to be fair, all of this is one big wellness journey. All of it. All of this is one big institute of wellness for yourself, where you are saying, in order for me to be my best self at work and in my life, I now need to create time and space for me to be able to pursue things that I feel free enough to then pursue. And the pursuit of those things is likely going to be you walking toward the door of some sort of business or brand that you will be building. And when I say brand is such a, it's kind of like authenticity. Like there's these big, like, definitions and seas of people that are having an opinion about what these words mean. But as somebody who's been coaching, consulting, and developing brands for almost 2 decades, I'm going to tell you what it is. Here it is. This is like the T of this episode. A brand is a message. Now, when you are talking about an authentically aligned brand and a brand that's aligned with your calling, it really becomes a message that you are called and divinely assigned to say out loud. Now, how we do that, those are products and services and things we box up and we make it, we know what it is, but that's not the point. We have to first start with getting you time to even consider any of those things. I've mentioned before that I put up a poll on my Instagram asking people why they have not quite quit their jobs yet. And usually the feedback that I get is I have these responsibilities and I need this amount of money, right? So here's the thing. You can get to that amount of money to satisfy all your responsibilities without being inside of a job that requires you to work in a certain way. If you've been challenging yourself, if you've been really taking the steps, the bold, courageous steps to consider whether or not the way that you've been showing up for your life every day, starting with the way that you work, if you've been considering whether or not that is serving your greatest, highest, boldest, best version of your life, then it is likely that you've discovered that it probably isn't. That there are probably places where you can actually maximize the way you show up every day to get a better version of your life. One where you're not tired all the time, one where you're not exhausted, one where you are looking forward to things. Recently, I started the UnCultured Coaching Community, which is really a space for you to go after the next goal for your life. And in this season, the goal that we are going after is relocation to another country, at least for part of the year. Now, why does that even matter? Because when you're thinking about reinventing your life, changing the way that you're showing up in the world to align your work, your life, your wisdom, the way that you show up, how you feel every day, when you're looking to align those things, then sometimes you realize I don't belong here. And it's not that you don't belong here some of the time, but you start to get the understanding that there's some other places that you could go and that you could be. I know that's what happened for me, that it became part of my lifestyle design to consider this picture in a more, global kind of a way. So if that's you, if you are the person that has been challenging the way that work is at the center of your life and realizing that it's time for you to make some changes, I want to personally invite you into this community, this space where we are going after the uncommon life. One where we're not waiting for retirement to live a life that we really want to live. We're not working for the next 60 years to be able to structure our lives. And I want to tell you right now, you don't need to have $1 bazillion saved up for this to be true for you. you. You just have to get intentional about it. So this community is so that all of us can have this conversation around what it means to really live in an uncultured way, in a way that goes against the plan, a way that goes against what popular culture is telling us is, the right way to get to success. This is your opportunity to reimagine and re-envision the way that your life could be so that you get to live a much more bold and vibrant version of your life every single day. If that's you, click the link below this video and just join the community today. We are waiting for you to continue this uncultured conversation. Now let's get back to the show. But all of this ultimately starts with you being able to have enough time and space to even consider this word freedom for yourself. There's no point in even beginning to consider, should I start the business? Should I start a brand? What am I called to say or do? Blah, until you in fact have the space to do it. All you need to know for now is that you feel deeply called to this word when I say it. When I say the word freedom, you're like, yes, that is me. I need that. I'm here for that. And so how do I get it? So here's what it is. It is a balance of being so invaluable at the job where you are that people cannot deny your requests and they have to consider them, even if they've never considered them for anybody else before. And also operating inside of your authenticity where your need for this thing comes through so cleanly that it doesn't appear as though you just want to get out of work. Because it's not what the point is. The point is not to just get out of work. It is to create space in your life for your next step. Now, ideally, in a human-centered corporate culture, you would be able to walk in the door of your HR people or your leadership team and be able to say, listen, I have been here for X amount of time and I really, enjoy my job. I've learned a lot. I've gained so much. And I'm really, honored to have been a part of the process of towing this mission for this company all this time and blah, 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 blah. And say, I am starting to feel a shift in a need to pursue something different. And so I would like to discuss how we can strategically cultivate my exit so that I am able to not leave you all in a position and also move on to the next best thing for myself. Ideally, in a human-centered culture, they would not be so concerned about keeping you for themselves that they would be willing to support you in your transition. Not always the case. So in this case, to start, if that is the case, great. Aspirationally, that would be the case for all companies. But if it's not, at minimum, you need to be so valuable and so authentic that it does not come across as though you're just trying to get over on the system. That is what makes some of this stuff so difficult. There are people that are so misaligned with who they are authentically that everything comes out like they're just trying to get over on the system. If your intention is actually to just gain more freedom in your life so that you can, in fact, live a life that's more aligned with your definition of that freedom, then this is just a request and it should be then a reasonable one. So maybe you're not initially asking to go from 40 hours to 4 hours, but you are asking to go from 40 to 20 or 40 in person to, 40 not in person. And so then, and maybe the bigger requirement is to get from this place of, I need to be at work for 40 hours versus, can we shift my hours from hours to being productivity based? As long as I am still efficient in my productivity, as long as I am still meeting the air quotes expectations and managing my portion of the key performance indicators, and as long as I am doing my part to contribute to this thing, then can that be enough to satisfy my requirement to be here? Because I want to be here. I don't not want to be here, and this is the conversation you've got to be able to have. So it has to come from a place of authenticity, because otherwise it will just sound like a gimmick, right? So imagine you go into the office and you're like, I just need more time off. That's not the approach that you want to take. That's not going to be received well. So the first part is to really challenge, why do you want this freedom? What is it about the word freedom that feels so enticing to you? Is it, and also let's just put this here, it's really honestly not enough to say, I just don't like working and I want to, not work. You will have to work. No matter what you do, you will have to work. You may end up working differently, but there will in fact be work to do. Recording this podcast is my version of work. It's different than sitting in an office. When I first started in entrepreneurship, I sat in an office where there was no lights and no windows for 20 hours a day. That was also work. This work is different. So then the question is, how do you want to work, and what does freedom feel like and look like for you, and why do you want this? It can't be just not to work, right? So in all of these considerations, the goal, if you want a freedom-based and fulfilled life, is to get to a place where work takes up less space, where the work that you are currently doing takes up less space. And even the work that you're growing to, if you want freedom, a mistake that I made when I first left corporate was I built myself a business. Yes, and that's true. And that for some people would, align, oh, that's freedom. No, I was working 20 hours in an office with no windows and no breaks. There was nobody to come relieve me. There was no support. I couldn't afford support. I did not have enough knowledge and education to build like a growable business model, and design companies are intrinsically difficult to scale in that way when you're starting solo. So the deal is not to just trade one circumstance of non-freedom for another circumstance of non-freedom. It is to be cognizant that in order to get a life of freedom, you must in fact spend less hours on work. Now that happens a lot of different ways. So starting from where you are, it is about being so valuable and so authentic that you can go ask a question that will cause the people that you are currently working with and for to consider allowing a different format of the way that you show up for work every day. I encourage you and challenge you actually to check out the 4-Hour Work Week so that you can get a little bit more detail if freedom is really part of your thing. It will give you a different perspective on what lifestyle design is and can be. But please understand that it starts from this entire premise that you deserve to live a life that you absolutely love. That's my part to this whole thing. But that it starts with first really understanding and cultivating on purpose and intentionally how it is you spend your time at work. Your time at work is kind of the anchor piece to all of this and your ability to be able to make choices and design your life around the word freedom. Lifestyle design by itself is just that. It is a process of making intentional choices that allow you to live a version of your life that feels most like you, most authentically aligned to who you are, and most centered in that word freedom. And we've got to start with the thing that you're currently spending your most time on, which is in fact the way that you show up for and do your work. So the first request has to be, can I not come in physically? Right? First request, can I not come in physically? How do I get my work to be more remote? Second request is around the hours that you need, get your like air quotes required to be at work. Can I have a flexible schedule around the way that my hours are curated? Can I curate those hours? And the argument there is always going to be efficiency. I am my most efficient between these peak hours. Those are off time of like company hours, but the things that I need to do will be done. Now, if part of your responsibility are client meetings and you have to, serve a client, then hopefully that doesn't feel like a sacrifice because hopefully you're working in alignment with who you're called to be. And if you are serving clients and you would be called to people, in which case sometimes serving people is part of your responsibility, but it's also your pleasure. Hopefully it feels that way. Hopefully it feels that way. And in either case, if part of your current job responsibilities are client meetings and those are happening during peak hours, that does not mean that you have to sacrifice the freedom that you are building for that thing. Show up for the meeting, sure. Ask if your presence can be virtual, right? So if you can get your core, work done in those areas, that time where you're most efficient, but then show up for the client meeting at the time where it needs to happen for the sake of the client that you are then serving, then you do that. But it doesn't sacrifice your entire day. That's 1 hour out of your day. And while temporarily you may need to, I say this on behalf of all the introverts all over the world, meetings, we really don't love them. So on behalf of all the introverts all over the world, if that meeting is in fact draining for you, then immediately after that, what is that fun, uplifting thing that you can do and add to your day that still makes you feel like you are experiencing the life of freedom, particularly as you are massaging your way out of a boxed-in existence to one that does in fact have more time freedom, more location independence, and just more authority and autonomy over your entire schedule. That's ultimately the goal, for you to be able to systematically make choices and intentionally curate experiences in your everyday life so that you do in fact feel like you have some sort of control over the way that you are experiencing your life every single day. Part of this changing the way that you are doing your work is to create margin in your life. It's so that as you are moving through the challenges of life and just traversing like your regular day, that you do feel like you have space and room to breathe. That's part of the freedom, right? Just feeling like, man, I do have room to breathe. Man, I do have a little wiggle room here if I don't do this thing. Now, the thing there is once you start to create a life of freedom, you do have to be more in control of your schedule. While you're taking back control from somebody else's kind of, purview as you're asking for the structure of your work day to be just like a bit, or really your work week to be just a bit different, you do then have to take control over your time. Otherwise, it will get away from you. That is also a thing. And it doesn't mean you have to schedule out every minute of your day. And I don't recommend that you do, but it's about understanding your natural proclivities and then maximizing your schedule to suit those. Again, if you're most productive between 3 and 7 a.m., do the tasks that require your full brain to be on from 3 to 7 a.m. If you are least productive between 4 and 6 p.m., fold the laundry. You know what I mean? Like whatever that you can do tactically with your hand that allows you to have the results of the life that you want without sacrificing the way that you naturally are. That's an important piece of this as well. No matter how you approach this is going to take some upfront effort, and it's going to take time to fully resolve itself. There's no way you walk in your manager's office tomorrow and they just give you everything that you need for you to have a perfectly free life. And even if they did, that doesn't mean you've completely mastered how to manage your schedule in a way that gives you the outcomes and results that you ultimately want to live a intricately and intentionally designed life, right? So all of this is going to take time. So as with everything, like give yourself a lot of grace. There's a requirement of grace here as you are making this big shift. And I want to be clear, like anytime you're making a change like this, it is in fact that it is a change. And because it's a change, it's going to feel different and maybe sometimes a little bit difficult. If it feels different and difficult, it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. And if it feels difficult, there's probably a way to simplify it. When I was in college, somebody told me that if I was using Microsoft Excel and I was spending a lot of time on it, I was doing something wrong. Not that you can design your life, like wrong, because again, you have capacity to choose every single one of your choices. And if it feels super difficult, you are probably overthinking it, overworking it, over massaging it. You are overdoing something in this. The lifestyle design process is meant to be a little bit of upfront work so that you can have a lifetime of reaping the reward of that upfront work. The upfront work is just shifting your mentality from a schedule that is given to you to one you get to reclaim and one you get to autonomously control.